Yeah, that's right. I see the chat. I see y'all rocking. I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button. Show your love. Show your support. You know what I'm saying? This that dope soul. This that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Knicks family. Welcome to Lunchtime Live, Knicks Recap and Reaction Show. I'm your host, Stephanie, a.k.a. Queen, joined by Geoff Klafter from the Happily Ever Klafter Daily Sports Blog. The Knicks have won 12 out of their last 15 games, 2 straight coming off a back-to-back. Chicago was on a back-to-back as well. And they found themselves in a dogfight with a lottery-bound team and figured out a way in the fourth quarter to make it happen and to pull out the win. And we'll talk about it later. But as Dwayne Dennis said in the chat, looks like Cat is back. Let's see if he's turned the corner and if the team has turned the corner in terms of how they feature him. Geoff, your quick thoughts on last night's game before we get into it.
Well, it doesn't seem like it matters what the records between these two teams are. The Bulls and the Knicks are always going to go down to the last couple of possessions. It just feels like it's destiny, right? We always play close games with them. And I was actually kind of, frustrated with the lineup at the end of the third quarter. It was Jalen Brunson and the Bam Bam unit. Like we had Brunson and Alvarado and Sohan and Landry Shamet and Huck Porty on the floor at the same time. And I really thought that hurt us. I mean, we were up 13 or 14 points when that lineup came in the game, and then they cut the lead down to 5 heading into the fourth quarter, and I made it a game again. Like and really, this was, and we'll talk about it more. But when Towns was on the floor, the Knicks were so much better last night, and so and I kind of think that he was a little bit exhausted from it because it looked like I don't know if you noticed, but they took him out for like 3 minutes in the fourth quarter. And that was the stretch, I think, where the Bulls went in front. Right. And then, he came. So I think he played like the first 5 minutes, he got like a 3-minute break. And then he got inserted back into the lineup for the final stretch and made play after play down the stretch. It was fantastic. At that point, but I really so to me, I know we were second night of a back-to-back, but I don't like some of the rotations that Mike Brown used last night. I don't think that we should have. I think it's too easy for the defense. When we have that lineup with Brunson and those 4 really offensive players, for lack of a better phrase. What did you, is that what you saw? Do you agree with that, or am I making a mountain out of a molehill there?
No. I that's it. That's in my notes as well. I'm okay with Brunson Alvarado, even though Alvarado is not a good shooter. I think he was 1 of 6 last night. But he just gives you another ball handler, legitimate ball handler in that unit with Brunson, where Brunson can comfortably play off the ball. I don't have a problem with that. But then it was Sohan and Huck Porty also. And I was like, yeah, that's a bit too much. Like if you're gonna do Brunson, and like maybe we gotta have OG, we gotta have you gotta have something to kind of balance it out. So I definitely agree with you, though I kind of like the Brunson Alvarado minutes. I don't know what it is statistically, though. I don't know how that plays out in terms of lineup data, but I just like when he's out there with Brunson.
Well, sample size probably too small at this point anyway, and I have no problem with the small backcourt of Brunson and Alvarado. Actually, I just don't think Brunson and Alvarado plus 3 non-scorers in the front court and going small with Landry Shamet is a combination we should ever be experimenting with. Like I'm with you, and especially with Sohan, I think if you're going to play Sohan, you need to have 4 shooters around him. You know what I mean? So I think that it's just not. it was not an optimal use of the players that were available to him, in my opinion, last night. That and I thought that it cost us, and it made that game a lot closer than it had to have been. I think if he went with a more balanced lineup on offense there, I think that we're able to carry a double-digit lead into the fourth quarter and not give them that confidence. Like, I felt like they were on the brink of kind of rolling over in that game, and we just kind of gave them a pass. And we were just, and then I was kind of concerned when they took the lead. I was like, what's going on? Why do we not have Towns in the game? Like, this is not good. And then Towns came in and rescued us. And so, look, they didn't get in till 3:00 in the morning to their hotels. So, I know Chicago had a back-to-back as well, but we've seen this team lose those second of a back-to-back in this season. So, fight through it, get tough, right? We've been talking about mental toughness with this team. Well, they actually showed a little bit of fortitude last night, and they did kind of have that lapse, but they said, no, we're gonna go through it, and we're gonna fight through it, and we're gonna take the game. And so a really good job, in my opinion, by to take care of business in that game. You lose that game, it's really bad. But again, it was big because the Cleveland lost to OKC, so you're able to even in the standings with them, and those things matter at this point, right? I mean,
for sure.
The Eastern Conference is just tight, and so every game becomes magnified in that situation.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, so to piggyback off what you're saying, we have to start off with Cat, and how he's played, not just last night, but I think in the Houston game as well. But last night, let me pull it up. He played 33 minutes, 28 points, 11 rebounds. 4 of them were offensive, and we needed them. Get those extra opportunities. 2 assists, 3 steals, 10 of 17 from the field. He took 9 3-pointers. I know Ajay is happy with that. Made 5 of them, 3 or 4 from the lane. And in the fourth quarter, 11.6 rebounds, 2 of them offensive with a steal, 4 of 7 from the field, and I believe 2 of 5 from the 3-point line. But I think more than that, Geoff, his process looks good. His decision-making looks good. He's strong with the ball. He's moving around. Now, I think some of that is schematic. You noticed in the Houston game, the first, 2 or 3 possessions, they went to him right in the post. That hasn't happened in a long time. So I believe they made a concerted effort to do that. And throughout the game, where players would usually look him off, and I don't know if that's intentional, and pass it to someone else, it seemed like the players were making a concerted effort to get Cat the ball. And that continued in last night's game. So that's the coaching schematic part of it that we've talked about it. But the flip side in terms of Cat's response is he's been really strong with the ball. In the post, and I'm loving this. Stop trying to bully guys. You don't have to bully with your height. Half turnaround, half hooks is good enough with your touch. Sweeping across the lane with the half hook, I was like, wow, off the glass. What? Like, this is somebody whose offensive game is one of the best in terms of his offensive bag for a big man, but it is being locked in and using it and not getting so hyped. Sometimes he'll score 2 or 3 baskets, he get hyped. Now he want to pull from the logo, he want to put it behind. Like, I just thought he was just carrying water and chopping wood. Like, just good decision making throughout. Didn't feel like he needed to shoot it every time he touched it. I just think the last 2 games, his process has been great. And if this is going to be the Knicks going forward, where schematically they're going to get him more involved, and on his part, he's going to deliver. Listen, you're not going to hit every shot, but your process is going to be good. That raises the ceiling of the Knicks, in my opinion, in terms of their championship hopes. What have you seen last night or over the past 2 games from Cat?
Well, he's progressing to his mean for his shooting numbers, so that helps, right? He's been a deadly 3-point shooter his entire career. He's down around 35% for most of the season. Last night, 5 of 9. That's big, right? Those extra few points. You only won by 6 points, so every little bit helped. I kind of think that Jose Alvarado has helped. I think that Alvarado's being a true pass first point guard is like, we need to set this guy up. We need to get him going. And I think that attitude, maybe I'm wrong about that, but it just seems like that attitude is infectious and contagious. And he's really, I don't know. The thing that I like about Towns is he's just trying to be a team player. Like, he doesn't always agree with the coach's decision about his usage and his role, but he's like, if that's what it takes to win, that's what I'm going to do. Like, I'm not going to make it about my ego and myself and my shots or whatever. I just want to play the best that I can play and contribute to the team in any way I can. And we're finally utilizing him in a way that we've been begging for months now, really. I mean, I don't know why it took Mike Brown 50 games to decide to put him over OG and Bridges in terms of shot diet. But I really love his process, as you said. I think that he just was locked in a way that maybe he hasn't been in other games. He just looked great, and we need this version of Towns if we want to reach our ceiling as a team. This is vital. We've got to have both of our star players firing on all cylinders and working in conjunction with each other. It's still kind of like, well, one has a good game and the other one doesn't. We need to find the synergy, where both of them are playing well at the same time. And, Brunson didn't have his best scoring game again, the second game in a row. But again, Towns was there, and it was really, if Towns wasn't there last night, we lose that game, because the minutes he was on the floor, the Knicks were dominant, and the minutes he was off, we were off.
Yeah. Moving on to Brunson. Well, let's start with Sherwin's point, because I'm interested in what you think about this. Shout out to Sherwin, always rocking with us. Good afternoon. What I got from the matches after the All-Star game is that teams will not let Brunson beat them. He is getting the old Randall treatment, double and triple teams at times. Cat must become the offensive superstar for the remainder of the season. 42% from 3 and 60% from inside the 3-point line. I do think teams are being a bit more aggressive with Brunson in terms of double teams. I mean, Detroit doesn't really have to. They can play him straight up, but I noticed that in the Chicago game and Houston as well. Houston also doubled Brunson and tried to get the ball, out of his hand. And I guess they're betting on the other players not coming through, for the Knicks. So I think Brunson's process has been fine as well. Like, if they're doubling you and like, there's no need to force it. Just pass the ball and see what happens. He's not shooting well, but to me, having a bad shooting night doesn't mean you're not playing well. Mikal Bridges didn't have a good shooting night as well. I didn't think he played. I didn't think he played poorly. So yeah. Just your thoughts on Brunson last night or since the All-Star break.
Yeah, I'll answer your question, but there was one other thing that I forgot to mention on Cat, so I'd like to go back to that for just a second. I felt like on that dagger 3-pointer by Mikal, did you notice where Cat was on that play? I thought that was the critical piece to that play, because Jalen drove in the lane and had the double team. Well, he was on the baseline in between Bridges and Brunson. And so the defender was late because he was worried about the pass to Cat, right in his wheelhouse, right from 15 feet away. And so that freed up, and it was almost like a screen. He didn't set a screen, but it was almost like a screen that allowed Bridges to get to the corner for that open three. And I thought that was a really nicely designed, like almost like a triangle there between the three of them, and it just made for a perfect offensive possession. And so I guess I can segue into that was the best of Brunson last night, right? That was his seeing the court, being the playmaker, finding his teammate, trusting his teammate to take a 3-pointer in the corner when he was 2 of 7 from 3 in the game to that point. I think that's really big, right? He still had confidence. I'm going to pass the ball here, and he's going to make that shot. So that to me was the best of Jalen, and we, we need that. He's going to have games where he doesn't shoot the ball great, and this was one of those. So anytime you can get a win when he's not doing his best work in terms of efficiency, I think you take it. I don't think we optimized him last night. I don't think you're doing him any favors by putting him in with 4 non-shooters and scorers. I don't like that concept even. And maybe it's because of who's out or whatever. But I think you can stagger the lineups in a way that you at least have 2 or 3 guys, in the lineup who are plus shooters and scorers. And we just really. We didn't see that in especially late third quarter last night. From that standpoint, I think that we made it a little bit tougher on him. But Jalen Brunson is Jalen Brunson. I have faith that he's a top 10 player in the league, and does he have his weaknesses? Absolutely, but he also comes through in the clutch a whole lot. I mean, we didn't get to talk about the Houston game, which is that's not what we're here to do. But if you
you can go back there if you want.
But just for this point,
to make a point. Yeah.
So if you look, compare and contrast what he did in that game versus what KD did in the fourth quarter, and Durant is, obviously, his talent and his resume speaks for itself. But Brunson was 4 for 4 in the fourth quarter after struggling, and it seemed like KD turned the ball over about 4 or 5 times down the stretch, which helped to buoy us into that victory. And so, Brunson is unique in that aspect. There's very few players who consistently perform at that level down the stretch and at crunch time in games. And and even last night, I think he even made a couple free throws I was nervous about, because how he's his late game free throws sometimes he gets a little bit shaky. But even last night, he was he was there. But I think that Brunson can score the ball. He's not the traditional point guard, nor is he I think a lot of us want him to be like a Trae Young, where he's averaging 11, 12 assists. And I don't think that's ever who he's going to be. I don't think that's his game. And I don't really want to ask him to be something that he's not. And I think that's going back to what Towns is. I think that when you're just asking him to be, one of the guys, you're asking him to be something that he's not. He's so much more than that. And so I really think it's up to Mike Brown to optimize all of these guys, and the more we see of this version of Cat, the tougher of an out that we're going to be in the postseason. So kudos to Towns and kudos to Brunson for in the late game. He didn't just dominate the ball. He made sure that Cat touched the ball a few times. And Cat he had a critical 3-pointer that I think it brought us back in the lead, right? We were down by 1. He got the 3, he knocked it down, put us up 2, and that kind of righted the ship for the Knicks. And they came and they got a stop, and they and they were able to survive for the victory. So good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line when it comes to Brunson, because the fact of the matter is he is our most reliable player. And as much as you do want to get others involved, and you do, you still want him to be aggressive also, because when he's not, and other teams are and the other players are coming through, you're good money. When he's not and other players are missing shots, you're not good money. And I think he needs to recognize that and then step up his game. But I like this comment by A Train. I'm interested in your thoughts on this one as well. Doubling and tripling, doubling and triple teaming Brunson is the evaluation this team needs to weed out those who can't step up. That is a great point, because that's the concern in the playoffs. If they take Brunson out of the game with double teams and he does make the right decision, are these guys are they reliable enough to come through? Right. And so we shall see. A Train. I think only the playoffs will tell. I think teams doing it more and more in the playoffs until the fourth quarter. I was like, wow, look. Even in Houston, I was like, oh wow, they taking the ball out of Brunson's hands, and we don't seem to be getting much going until that fourth quarter when we came back from an 18-point lead. So I think it's a work in progress. I think it's a work in progress of getting Cat involved. um, Brunson staying aggressive, and aggressive doesn't mean shooting all the time. It just means being aggressive, being engaged. You double team, I make the quick pass, you stay off of me, I'm gonna hit the shot. Like aggressive in that sense, and then other guys staying ready and consistently, coming up big when they do take the ball out of Brunson's hands, and that's something that's been inconsistent, at least with our wing players, consistently coming up big. And any thoughts on this?
Well, I actually think that our guys do a good job when they're double and triple teaming Jalen. I think that's when they're at their most effective. I think when our guys struggle is when you have teams like Detroit who can play him one-on-one and aren't doubling and tripling. That's when, and Houston was able to do, like, I'm glad there's not a third Thompson twin that plays in Chicago, right? I think that where we struggle is when other guys have to create without the advantage, right? When we're able to draw two to the ball and do those things, you get wide open looks for McCall in the corner. You get wide open looks for OG, and those sorts of things. So, and I think they do a good job in those circumstances most of the time. To me, it's when that goes away, right? When Brunson is kind of contained, that the offense tends to stagnate and bog down. And, to be honest, the offense wasn't really great last night. We only had 105 points. So it wasn't,
Facts.
and the Bulls are one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. So it's not like we were, credit to our defense. They did a good job, but it's not like we were, lighting the world on fire. Now, some of that maybe the second night of back-to-back or whatever, but, whatever the reasons, they weren't outstanding on offense last night. And so I'm much more concerned about when they can play Brunson straight up. And I think the deeper you get into the playoffs, if you're playing in OKC in the finals, for example, they're not going to be double and triple teaming Jalen Brunson. I can promise you, they're going to have Alex Caruso or whatever guy that is. And if that guy gets cooked, they're okay with that, right? Because they think over the course of the game, and that's how Detroit is with Jalen. He may get his and cook, but we're gonna make sure everybody else has the toughest defense possible on them. And so so I think that that is more my concern with this offense is what happens when we don't have the advantages of doubles and triples. Because I think anytime that they throw that stuff at us, that's when our offense kind of comes at its peak. So we want to induce that. But I think as we move into the postseason, unless you're talking about maybe a team like Cleveland might have to double them, or because they don't really have good lockdown defenders on the perimeter, in my opinion. Right. So that might be a case where we can rely on that. But the deeper that you go, the more that goes away, and the more those guys are going to have to be able to step up on single coverages and beating their guys.
Yeah. I hear that. I agree that if you're single coveraging, if there's single coverage, it's OG consistently beating his guy off the dribble. That's just not a good thing. Mikal Bridges, who can do it, I just don't think that's part of his mindset. I still think if there's a steady diet of getting the ball out of Brunson's hands, I hear what you're saying. It's better for them. I still don't know how consistently they can do it, but I do get your point. I do want to you know, address this by David Smith. Shout out, he's always rocking with us. Huge Cat fan. Brunson is a limited player. Cat has much bigger bag in his offensive game. Yeah, David, relax yourself. Yeah, I agree. Cat has a bag, and the Knicks have to do a better job of getting him involved. Brunson is not, by any stretch, a limited player. He's an All NBA player. Come on, like relax. You can like your guy and not be insulting to someone else, unless we have a different definition of limited. Maybe that's
I think you
what
can
it
make
is.
the argument that Brunson's a better post scorer, actually. Like, if you want to talk about it, he doesn't have any size advantage, and he can score on the block. I mean, because he's got footwork that's phenomenal and out of this world. And they're, I think they're actually, very similar in terms of their 3-point shooting ability. Both on catch and shoot and creating their own. So I'm look, it's a good thing to have two good players. I don't think we need to pit them against each other. I really don't like the discourse that happens, and it's not. I'm not picking on David Smith here, because I think it goes both ways. I think a lot of times it's like, well, it's Team Jalen versus Team Cat. They're on the same team, guys. They're working together to be the best version of themselves that they can be, and they haven't always figured that out yet. And so, it's just, I think that let's root for the whole team. Like, yeah, Brunson has his flaws and his warts. So does Cat. So do all of them. So I just think that let's celebrate all of them when they win, and let's criticize all of them when they lose. And I think that's fair. And I think that's what you're going to get here. We're not the pom-pom squad. So if you're coming in here expecting that we're going to be, on either of these guys, when Cat doesn't play well, we call it out. When Brunson doesn't play well, we're the first ones to say that he doesn't play well. And I didn't think he had his best game last night, by the way. I just think that for this team to be at its best, we need the best out of both of those guys. That's what gives us an advantage. There are not a lot of teams that have two all-star players like that. And so, I think that Mike Brown hasn't done a great job of getting the most out of Towns. And these last few games were really, actually the last month or so, even though scoring has really only ticked up above 25 points in the last couple of games, I've actually thought the last month or so that Towns has really elevated the level of his game. And we've seen a much better version of him than we saw, earlier in the season. So, I get weary of the discourse of pitting our two best players against each other. And this isn't necessarily a Towns thing. They did the same thing when Randall was here, right? Randall and Brunson. Right. We had the same conversations, but it becomes exhausting at some point. That's just like, we're winning 2 out of every 3 ball games right now. We're higher in terms of games above 500 than we've been all season. And Cat is a huge part of that. Jalen Brunson is a huge part of that. I think that it would be foolish to say that this team doesn't need Jalen Brunson. I don't think we've won a single game he's sat all year, right? But I think it's also, Towns is proving he's equally valuable. And so, and I think that what we need to do is have those two at their best, because when that happens, that makes life easier for guys like OG and Mikal, who need their lives made easier. Let's be honest, they're not, as Queen said, they're not the guys who are going to, step up in and of themselves and take it upon themselves to assume a bigger role consistently. And so we need our 2 stars to consistently show up and do the trick.
And I think there's a difference between being the head of the snake and playing off of the head of the snake. So I think when you look at OG and Bridges and what they're able to do, a lot of what they're able to do was because they were on the court with Cat and Brunson, and they draw a lot of attention. Cat, you know, he's a really, really good player, but Cat can't be a number one on any team because you could take him out of the game easily with a double team. You know what I mean? Like he's and I believe that for a lot of centers other than Joker, because they just operate in such limited space. You know, it's just really hard. It's really easy to crowd them and double them, and so he's not a number one. I don't even think that is a question. Catch your best player. Like I said, I think he can easily be taken out of the game. That being said, you could make it hard for any top tier player, but we've seen Brunson more often than not with a lot of different coverages. Just think back to that Miami series a few years ago. Really tough defensive team, multiple coverages, and he was still that dude. Right now, whether or not he could be the best player on the championship team, we shall see. We shall see. Does his floor game need to continue to evolve? Yeah, yeah, it does. I think that's fair. Shout out to Mikal last night for that big shot. Whenever guys are struggling shooting wise and they make a big shot, I always feel like this is somebody who was still in it mentally. He was 4 of 10 last night overall, 3 of 8 from the field. He did play in the fourth quarter this game. He had 11 fourth quarter minutes, and he hit a big shot for us that sealed the game. So yeah, Mikal is Mikal. I'm kind of getting used to, to who he is and what he does. The bench was not good last night. We got outscored. I think it was 27-43 or something like that. They were the only plus minus on the team was from the bench, collectively a minus 35.
Wow.
Alvarado, who I really like his ball handling. And even though that Brunson Alvarado backcourt is small, I like it, but he's not shooting well. And we know he's not a shooter, but I think this is even poor for his standards. 2 of 8 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3. He didn't have a turnover, which is fine. Shamet 16 points. He was 5 of 9 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3. He really had some good. Like he's really confident. In that Houston game, he took it to the rack like 3 times for layups. So I really like the way he's coming along. He could be up and down from game to game as well, but overall I thought he was okay. Hokporty, did a really good job of, trying to get us second chance points, really battling in there. 4 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block, -6 for those who are into that. But I thought his minutes was mostly positive, and Sohan with just 12 minutes, 2 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Only took 2 shots. One of them was a layup. That seemed to just bounce into his hand. He converted. We'll take it any way we can get it. Mr. Robinson was out last night. There was no Kolick, no Clarkson, no Diawara last night. Anything else on any other player on the team?
I don't know. I think that we covered all the major things, except I would say I liked OG Anunoby's defense last night. I thought he was really active. I wanted to shout that out. I think he didn't shoot the ball great necessarily, but I thought he was very active defensively, and I think that he helped us out quite a bit. And so I thought that he was good. It's weird that Shamet was such a big minus because it looked like he was knocking down everything last. I was really surprised to see that he was in the negative. But I kind of think
his defense was good too.
Yeah,
but it could be who he was out there with too.
Yeah, they had him. He was playing the small forward, with Alvarado and Brunson, which is kind of an odd lineup. And then you had two non-scorers in the front court with Sohan and Huckporty. I don't think that's maximizing Shamet, but Shamet did a good job of making shots anyway. But I'm not sure how many he made in that configuration, because I do think that he's more of an ancillary player who's going to take advantage of shots that are given to him a lot more than he is going to be creating anything for himself. But so I think that the lineup decisions were a little bit questionable, but a win is a win. Maybe he's just trying stuff out and testing it and see if he can use that in the playoffs.
Fair.
And, sample size in this game would say no, but it's such a small sample size. Maybe if you give that unit enough minutes together, maybe they work it out and do some other things. I don't know, but I was not really enthused about how the team was used last night. But again, the W is all that's important.
Yeah, but lineups matter, right? Because it can make it harder for a team, both offensively and defensively, or better for a team, both offensively and defensively. Jamrock always, and then David Smith. So Jamrock always says, you might be surprised of the record when Cat takes 14 shots or more versus 14 shots or less. Knicks are a 500 team when Cat takes more than 14 shots, and 20-4, I would think, when he takes less than 14 shots. And then David Smith somewhere there, I never heard of that stat. Where you get that from? I never heard of it. I don't know if you're looking for it. You have to look for it. You can't just be looking for the Brunson stats, right? You gotta look for the Cat stats as well. Thank you, Travel Vibes. Feeling really good out here. That is for sure. Yes, Cat was defensive player of the game. Last night. I just think, in the Houston game, he made a comment, and, Brown basically, backed it up that, between the third and fourth quarter, he came back to the bench and said, listen, the first possession out in this fourth quarter, we got to get a stop. And that includes me. Like, we have to pick it up on the defensive end. And they did that. And they came back from an 18-0 run, and it was fueled by the defense. And Alvarado with 5 steals, yeah. I mean, yeah. He's just, some things don't show up in the box score, but we do need him to knock down 1 or 2 more open shots. We ain't asking for a lot, just 1 or 2 more open shots. We need you to knock it down. Just some statistical stuff. The Knicks held them to third. I mean, you might not want to give the credit to the Knicks defense, but they shot 39.5% from the field overall, and only 34.8% from the 3-point line. The Knicks did not do a good job. They only had 13 turnovers, but they gave up 21 points off of those turnovers. The rebounds were even at 50. Points in the paint was even at 32. Knicks were +2 and second chance points. And we talked about the bench, 27 to 43. And I think statistically was pretty, it was pretty even. And I think, Cat was the difference in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and you'd expect the stats to be pretty even in a 6-point game, though, too, right? I mean, that's kind of how it was, and I think the bench stats are a little bit deceiving, because if you look at the minutes distribution, they play their bench a lot more than like some of their bench guys that they relied on more heavily. I actually thought, and this I think has more to do with tanking than anything. This was kind of the best of all worlds for the Bulls. They stayed competitive with one of the top teams of the East, and they still get the L, so they can work toward getting better lottery position. I think that not playing Colin Sexton, was silly, if you're trying to win. I mean, Sexton only had a few minutes, but he's a Knick killer, first of all. and just instant offense on a night when they couldn't really find anybody else to get going. So, but again, I'm not sure that winning that game was, I mean, if they won, I'm sure they would have been fine with it, but I don't think they like, even in the last possession, like normally a team is down 6, they're fouling, right? They just let Josh Hart dribble around the front court like a maniac until the clock evaporated. So I don't know that they were necessarily in it to win it, so to speak. They were just, seeing what they had with their young guys and seeing how they would respond and using that as information, which is fine, and that's why they've lost 9 in a row or whatever it's been. They don't have any interest in being a play-in team at this point, and, I don't necessarily blame them. So, but hey, we're not responsible for that. Just get the win, get out of Dodge, and move on to Tuesday.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get to the chat. Very interesting comments in the chat. We already discussed some of them live. Dwayne Dennis was in the building early. David Smith is right. This team will not win without Cat. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Like we need Cat to be him in the playoffs. Salute to you, Kerry Cox. I appreciate you. Ralph Unreal, I appreciate you. Big ups to Cat. David Smith, are you taking all of this in? Shout out to, I'm just playing with you. Jerrell, salute to the family. Got my earbuds in while I'm shoveling snow. Be sure to bend your knees, okay? Bend your knees when you're shoveling that snow.
Move to Texas. It's 57 degrees in West Texas today. We don't have to worry about that white powder stuff.
Right. Kerry Cox, Knick fans say goodbye to McBride. I don't know about that, but I think you're making a point. If it comes down to, what his camp is asking for, and if the Knicks feel like it might be a bit too much, and they've had some success without him, that might go into the decision-making process. But I think McBride has a body of work that the Knicks are well aware of.
And you know how we love our 6'3" and under guards, so we collect them like they're baseball cards or something. So maybe not so much. I understand the sentiment, though. We do have decisions to make, but and how it is curious how much is Deuce McBride worth on the open market. Like I know I saw something about Mitchell Robinson that he's worth a lot more to the Knicks than presumed almost every other team in the league. And I'm wondering if McBride is kind of the same way or if he's viewed differently. I mean, he's certainly on a steal of a contract right now. But yeah, we've done a good job without him because we've got a lot of depth, but are we wanting to invest in Alvarado long-term? What about Shamet? We have, these guys are on short-term deals. So we've got to figure out what we want to do with them. So yeah, it's a fascinating conversation, but I kind of feel bad for Deuce because, this injury has kind of come at the worst time for him. Was contract extension eligible this summer. And so we'll go from there. And yes, Nick, the Lakers always want Mitch because they don't have any bigs right now. I mean, I guess they do have the kid from University of Arizona. His name escapes me right now, but I'm not real. Ayton, that's who it is, DeAndre Ayton, but not really huge into him. And I don't think the Lakers are either because he just seems like he's, I don't know, selfish ball player, but maybe he's doing better there. I don't follow the Lakers from game to game, but
yeah. You were talking about Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah.
To get back to Deuce, I think the decision making is not going to be about Deuce as a player individually, but about that role for the Knicks. And can somebody play that role cheaper? I think a lot of it is going to depend on how much he's asking for. The Knicks value him. Don't get me wrong. And I think they do want to re-sign him. But he's eligible for a $95 million max. I don't think he's going to get a $95 million max from the Knicks. But what his camp is asking for is going to make a difference. That's what happened with Quickly, right? they couldn't come to an agreement because, quickly, because of the money that he, that he wanted, and so he was traded. So I wonder if that'll be similar. I think what they asked for, my point is gonna be a part of it.
And the other thing is he might be a salary and a trade aggregation that we need, as a player that a team values, like an actual asset and not just a salary number if you were going to go big game hunting this summer. So that's a possibility too, because as you said, when the Knicks can't come to an agreement on a number that they like, they tend to send those players elsewhere.
Yeah. David Smith, Cat has the best. Cat has the best plus minus in the entire NBA the past month. Great, and he leads the entire league in double doubles with 39. Yeah, he does.
Not only that, but I think he passed Robert Parrish on the all-time list. I think he moved into like 25th place all time for double doubles. So I thought that, first of all, anytime you can beat a Celtic, I'm always for that. But Robert Parrish, from what I remember, that was when he played was outstanding. Like he was an all-star center for years and years and years. So to surpass him in double doubles, I think it speaks to the quality, long-term quality of a player like Towns. So really good on him. And I think also, just while I'm thinking of it, Jalen Brunson passed Dave DeBusschere on the Knicks all-time scoring list last night. So
wow,
yeah. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I saw that on X last night. So I was like, hey, that's kind of a neat thing. Salute to Dave DeBusschere, one of the great all-time Knicks, who doesn't really get talked about probably as much as he should. My dad says he's one of the best defensive players he ever saw, period. And so shout out to him. But he was, that trade was what took us to the next level. And when we got Towns, I kind of thought, well, maybe that's the trade to get us to the next level. So we'll see. If we had a couple milestones from both of our big guys last night. So it's kind of cool to see. Yeah,
for sure. A-Train. Cat was also staying on his feet after shots and getting back on defense. Yes, he was. He's putting effort on both ends of the floor, for sure. And he did a great job on Sengun in the fourth quarter. I think he was 0 for 4, maybe had a turnover or two. And I'm with you, Geoff. If you listen to Karl-Anthony Towns interviews, he's very humble. He said, listen, he is a great player. He makes it difficult for you, and he brings out the best in me. In other words, you got to be on your P's and Q's if you're playing him. So he was very complimentary of Sengun, and I thought he did a really good job in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Okay. All right. Jeff, JJ says, that's the problem, Geoff. We need Cat to be more selfish. Forget the nice, do what it takes to win stuff. We need him to be dominant to win a title. And that's what, Shaq, I think they would, if you listen to the interview with Shaq and inside the NBA guys and Karl-Anthony Towns, I think I think Shaq, I thought Shaq was saying that he needs to be dominant, but I don't know if did he mean that he needed to be dominant in the sense of he needed to be like him, like bully ball dominant, or just dominant in the sense that you need to come out and exert your will on the game. That's kind of what I got from, what he was saying.
Yeah, I actually thought that conversation was really interesting. I think it shed a lot of insight into who Towns is as a player, and also who Shaq was as a player, right? And look, Cat's never won a championship before, but he has been like the primary scorer and done all of those things. So I think in part of this may be just him trying to find his way. What is the best way that I fit in? And I kind of feel like, and this personal bias, I kind of feel like what we've seen of him of late is kind of the best best way that he can serve the Knicks with considering what his skill set is. And so, but I think that's as much on the team as it is on him as to,
Right.
pour into him and get the most out of him, because when he's unlocked like he is last night, the Knicks are very difficult to beat. I mean, it's there's no doubt about that. So I thought that was a fascinating interview. Maybe, and I understand the people who want him to be more of an alpha personality. I get that, but I have a lot of respect for a guy who just whatever it takes to win. I think that selfless attitude and team attitude goes a lot more to winning. And I'm going to go back to the Knicks championships in the 60s and 70s. Earl Monroe had the same attitude, right? Earl Monroe was a dominant player when he came to the Knicks, and he said, I can share the ball with Clyde. And there was a lot of question whether that was going to work, right? They're like, there's two ball dominant players. How are they going to coalesce and work together and win? And they just made it work. They subjugated their egos and they said it's for the team. And so, I think that there's at least a precedent for that now. The dynamic between Towns and Brunson is a little bit different because they play different positions. They're not both guards, but in terms of what they both do for this offense, they have. They have similar roles in that aspect. So, I think that Shaq is probably right that the mindset of Towns needs to be that, but I don't know that he doesn't have that mindset. I think that he just wants to do what the coaches are telling him is going to be the best for the team to win. And I think that's his focus, and good on him for that. I'm not going to criticize a player for that.
Well, I have a different take on it. I like that about him, that if this is what you're going to ask me to do, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm a team player. Whether I agree with it or don't agree with it, if this is what you're asking me to do, I'm going to do it. And we've seen that throughout the season. Two things can be true, though. We still need Cat to be dominant. And that's on him, and that's also on the schemes as well. He's the second best player on the team, in my opinion. I know some people think it's OG Anunoby. I don't. I think it's Cat. And if we're gonna win this
chip, it's Jalen Brunson.
Some people think it's Jalen Brunson. Yeah, David Smith. But he has to be the second best player on the team. And if the last two games are any indication, it seems like the Knicks are starting to understand that. Let's see. Kev Bergen, Brunson is the best player on this team, hands down. That's why he gets doubled. Cat's aggressiveness is the key to our success. Listen, Michael Jordan was the best player on Chicago, but you're not winning those championships without Scottie Pippen. Being the best player on the team is not enough. So two things can be true. Brunson can be the best player on the team, and you need Cat to win a championship. And that's what I think it is. Being the best player is not enough. Okay. Walter White, Stephen A. just said when Cat shoots 14 plus shots, we're 500 team, 13 or less, we're 20-4. I'll have to fact check that. Okay, do that. Get back to us. Let us know. We did give our thoughts on that. I'm wondering what the chat. I thought the discourse after the interview, he's a nice guy and that's why he's not dominant. Like, I wasn't with that. Like, I just don't. I don't agree with that. That because he's nice, that's why he's not dominant. He's struggling in the season. He was the same nice guy last year when he was all NBA. Same personality. So I don't get that. All right, let's get to a few more. Okay, Dwayne Dennis, Brunson can score all the points he wants to, but in the end, this team will not win freezing Cat out. He must be utilized to take advantage of his skill set. Agreed.
Amen.
Yeah. Super Morty Man coming in here to shout out his Detroit Pistons. All right, I see you. I ain't mad at you. I ain't mad at you at all. Nick Nation, appreciate you. Salute. Salute. All right. All I know is Kat said to Brunson, it's hard out there without you. Case closed. Yeah, all right, all right, all right. I mean, I'm sure it's harder on Brunson when Kat's not in the game either. Slow Runner, I appreciate you. 14, if this is your first time, welcome. If not, welcome back. Definitely impressive Brunson game. Though he didn't shoot well, he made key plays to Cat and the winning Bridges corner 3-point shot that sealed the win for the Knicks. I wonder though if Brunson would have, if Bridges would have missed that shot and we would have lost the game, would we still be praising Jalen Brunson's process? Because that's what I'm saying. You can't really look at the results. You can't really look at the assists. Sometimes he's making those passes and players are missing. You know, sometimes he's not making them at all. Now, I'm not saying I get it. But sometimes he's making those passes and guys are missing. Okay. Okay. King Imbert 2011. Salute y'all. Stay safe out there. Definitely. I know in New York, it's still snowing. I look on my ring camera, it's still snowing out there.
Yeah, be safe, everybody. That weather's no joke. I hope you have enough stuff to in your pantry to kind of weather the storm here, because it seems like it's going to be a minute.
Yeah. Nick Yak, I appreciate you rocking with us. Last 15 games, we held 11 teams under 101 points. Detroit only had 106. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm not going to get to everything, but I do appreciate you. I do have a super chat by Walter White. I appreciate you. Salute to Steph and Geoff. You picked a good time to take a flight. Steph and Geoff has a ring to it. If Cat and JB ever developed a two-man game, you're right. You're right. Steph and Geoff. Yeah, I never even thought of that. Yeah, the Steph and Geoff show. All right. Sherwin, I have 18 inches so far. Pause, but we get what you're saying. Okay. All right. Brunson had 8 or 9 assists. How many we miss in the first half? Yes, exactly. That's why you can't always look at assists. Okay.
Pass percentage and those sorts of things are, that, but those aren't things that are reported. You have to go to like a cleaning the glass or pay site to get a lot of those stats a lot of times, as opposed to, so they're not as readily available to the, average fan as just accounting stats are, which are easier to look at.
Yeah. Andrew K, appreciate you. Yeah, Cleveland Cavs tomorrow. Can't wait. They lost to OKC without Shai and Shea and Williams, and that means absolutely nothing. They will be ready Tuesday. That game, yeah, that game is in Cleveland too. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Any last words?
We got a super chat from Jamrock.
Oh, we got another super chat. All right, let me get there. Jamrock, always appreciate you. What you make of the Cat and JB argument on the floor? I did not see that. Good. Sometimes you need a little tension. That just shows that you care. I'm sure they were arguing about something basketball related. Somebody was supposed to be doing something that they weren't doing, and the other person was saying why they couldn't do it. But I didn't see of it. But I don't think
think
it's
he
something
told him
that's
to
going
get
to
in the
linger.
post if you want the ball. I think that's what Jalen told him. He said, "Get in the post if you want the." I think he used a little bit more colorful language than that, but
Okay.
but that's my understanding of what was said. I like that stuff. I don't have
I
a
do
problem. I
too.
don't, as long as it's, I don't know. I think that's fine, and especially if it gets your player to respond. Like y'all know each other, y'all have a relationship. Like families get into it sometimes. That's not any. I don't ever worry about that. I think it's kind of silly to expect that you're going to be around these guys every day, and have all these, and you're never going to have a dust up or an argument, or that's just not. It's just not how human dynamics work.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, when Brunson has the ball, he can direct Cat into the post like Alvarado does. He clears people out and he directs him, into the post. So Brunson could do um the same thing. Size 9 says Shaq be out there fronting, forgetting he was an extremely flawed player. But that's what made him great. That's what made him great. That he was able to accomplish what he did despite that. I mean,
Kobe
yeah,
says if he had his work ethic, he'd have been the best player of all time.
yeah, yeah.
R.I.P. Kobe. One more from Jamrock, by the way. He just
Okay.
blessing us all over the place.
All right. Appreciate you, Jamrot. Cat allowed Eason to push him out of bounds. Okay. He may have. Um, yeah, he may have. I mean, teams have been getting, physical with Cat. I still think overall in that Houston game, he came up big for us despite that. Yeah. Okay. Cat lets guys push him out of the post too easily, too often. Yeah, I think it's a leverage center of gravity thing. He's just not strong. He's strong up top, but hip down, to me, he just doesn't seem strong. And in order to get leverage, that means now you got to bend down. Yeah. Any last words, Jeff?
Just it's good to be back at it, and there's going to be a light week. I think we just have Tuesday and Thursday, maybe a game on
Tuesday,
Saturday.
not Thursday, Tuesday and Friday and Sunday, I believe.
Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. So a light week. I mean, only 3
Yeah,
games.
light week.
So, hopefully we can use that extra time to our advantage, practice-wise and those things. But we are on the road, I think. Is this the Chicago, Cleveland, Milwaukee,
Yeah.
Midwest trip here. So, big game on Tuesday. We're tied with Cleveland in the standings. So, we have the tiebreaker already because we've beaten them twice. But if we could get them again, then we're a game up on them, and it's in effect being 2 games up on them because you have, with the tiebreaker they have to go ahead of you by a game. So, really big game against the Cavs on Tuesday. And as you said, they're not going to be. We're not going to get a poor effort from them. They'll be up for that one for sure.
For sure. With the loss, Jeff, to OKC, we're actually up a full game. They're 36-22. We're 37-21.
Okay, well then that makes it even more important, right? Because if you
Yeah.
win that game, then you're 3 games up on them in effect instead of just 2, because they have to get ahead of you. So they were not as high in the standings as I thought. I guess they were tied with us, and then when they lost yesterday, we won. We're a game ahead of them.
We're a game ahead. Yeah, and a game behind
Boston, who blew out the Lakers on Pat Riley night. That's crazy.
Yeah. Appreciate you, the flying Grayson. Appreciate you rocking with us. I know this is not your first time, so welcome. Welcome back. We do our best. All right. So I'm gonna do my best. I have an appointment Wednesday, but it's 5:30 here, so I'm gonna do my best to be back for it because I definitely want to talk about this Cleveland game, no matter how it goes. Until next time, appreciate those in the chat for being extremely active. I appreciate the replay gang and definitely the silent listeners. Until next time, family.
Sister, you're one of a kind.
Yes.
Oh, sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Dope soul.
Where you at? Where you at?